It's time for Supply Chain Now Radio, sponsored by Apex Atlanta and Talent Stream. Broadcasting live from the supply chain capital of the country, Atlanta, Georgia, Supply Chain Now Radio spotlights the best in all things supply chain. The people, the companies, the technologies, the best practices, and the critical issues of the day. Now, here are your hosts.
All right, Scott Luton here with you live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome to the show. We're glad you've chosen to join us. Today, we're broadcasting live from beautiful Orlando, Florida, not Atlanta, where we typically broadcast from. And we're at Velocity 2019, the forum to learn about solutions, strategies that will help you accelerate your digital supply chain. So you can learn more at velocity-conference.com. We've been chatting with a variety of supply chain leaders today, and this is the first segment of the second episode here at Velocity. We're moving at the speed of light for sure. So let's welcome this segment's featured guest, Sean Willems, Haslam Chair in Supply Chain Analytics at the University of Tennessee. Good afternoon, Sean.
Hi, Scott. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we are glad to have you here. So, and you traveled in from Orlando from Knoxville.
I did, yes.
Okay. So you have set a bar for us. We talked about the 12-minute tack time, our goal, an 18-minute tack time, maybe. I don't know.
Yep.
But we're going to be succinct. We're going to go to the point. Really admire a lot of the work you're doing in the supply chain industry, and glad to have you here on Supply Chain Now Radio. So before we talk about some of your recent work, tell us more about your background and overall journey.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, I'd like to say I was taking apart, lamps when I was 5 and dreaming of supply chain, but that's just not true. I got interested in graduate school, and I had the good fortune to go to MIT, and at that time got really interested in inventory optimization. And this is sort of one of those good things where it was a perfect timing where there was a lot of interest in the late 90s in inventory optimization. And then we had the math and we could create it to deliver value to companies. So it was very exciting.
Fantastic. And so beyond co-founding your own company, Optiant.
Yep.
You've received, and you later sold that, I believe.
Yep.
You've received significant recognition for your work with lots of well-known organizations, from Hewlett-Packard to P&G, Intel. Have there been any common threads amongst your work with these organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's sort of a couple. One of the main ones is, these are companies that have sort of, say, pushed the boundary of analytics and what they could achieve sort of with their homegrown solutions. And those homegrown solutions, although you have really smart people there, they can develop good stuff, they're fragile. And so really there's this need for how do we sort of systemically solve these problems, not just for a single person, but for lots of people. And that's, to me, the core of sort of how we get companies engaged.
So have you seen those organizations be more accepting of outside ideas and new ideas than a lot of the organizations out there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely there's a set of companies. Sometimes I go in and I'm like, wow, everyone's so smart here. I need to put my head on the desk. There's like some really good people. So there's sort of a confluence of things. One is you've got really good people. And then two is they realize, hey, if this part's already been reduced to practice, then they can go work on something else. So that sort of, to me, is the synergy for how we get them on board.
Fantastic. So beyond what you're doing at UT, you've been also a visiting professor of operations management at the MIT Sloan School of Management since 2016. So clearly you're interacting frequently with all kinds of students, and I know that you teach your students a ton of things, but kind of flipping that, what are some of the critical lessons that your students have taught you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I always say, it's a privilege to get to teach because I learn more than what I teach them, right? And I think of the first that I think of, there's so much talk about like are millennials different and all these things, and I guess I don't know or not know exactly, but the way I think of it is what I see is millennials in sort of the current generation, what they want is actual sort of mentorship. So they want to work in an area that they care about. The good news for us is that supply chain is actually exciting enough that they want to work there. They self-select in. But then what I see is like, what's the purpose behind this? And honestly, when I was doing this stuff earlier, I didn't think so hard about the purpose. I'm like, the purpose is to optimize something. I don't know. Yeah. And they're like, no, like, what are we actually doing? And so you see, hey, let's apply these, like, let's get this resource allocation better so we're more efficient, so we're not wasteful. And honestly, I'm like, now I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I see that more clearly probably than I did before.
So switching gears a little bit here, as everyone can hear the buzz here at Velocity Conference here in the background, what are 2 to 3 current supply chain trends that you're tracking more than others right now?
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I think of the first sort of major issue in supply chain is really how do we get the data and sort of really get it to make it actionable. And again, that it sounds like we've been having this problem forever, but you see now many more exciting ways people are really doing it, really harnessing sort of multiple data sources, pulling them together. I think that piece is really very nice and exciting. And whenever you see it here, it's eye-opening. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think the other sort of piece you see is how do we actually not just sort of get something that's optimal, but get something that's implementable? And so I think implementable solutions, I think before it used to be like, hey, I have the best math and that's great. Now it's much more, hey, can you take my current existing situation and truly make it better?
Interesting. So what I'm hearing there, your two things you're tracking. Number one, not only are we collecting data, we're actually doing something with it, much more so than a few years ago.
Yep.
And then number two, practical application, something that not just theoretical and really cool and neat, but something that's practical and hits the mark in our operations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very interesting. So you've been to a variety of Velocity conferences.
Yes, indeed.
What are some of your favorite aspects of coming to conferences like this?
Well, I always think of, when I think of these things, of course, everyone's busy. So it's like, why do you come to this conference or why do you come to any conference? And I think of it as there's a couple key reasons, but the most important, of course, is to learn from the other people in the room. I'm always amazed. I was sitting here and actually met yesterday someone from Siemens Healthineers. It's like I've worked with that company. And I, of course, had no clue that this person was here presenting, had no clue what they were doing. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. They're working on expiration of sort of short shelf life products. So I just think it's this opportunity to really see other people, what problems are they solving today?
Love it. Yeah, these offer opportunities to connect the dots, make connections, start relationships, which even in the digital era, relationships are so critical these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of, there's sort of 2 things we should always tell everyone. Like step 1 is communicate more. Like you should be communicating more. Step 2 is like educate more. But educate more, I don't mean like tell someone something, but really like work together to figure out and solve a problem.
Love it. So what other trade shows are on your horizon this year?
Yeah, well, I'm always a big fan, so not surprisingly, of, CSCMP and APEX, and I think of these are sort of the premier outlets for practitioners to see what other practitioners are doing. I'd be remiss, the Institute for Operations Research and Management Science, Informs. I think the Informs Analytics Conference, which used to be called years ago the Informs Practice Conference, which is, I think it's actually in a month and a half or so in Austin. I think that's a very nice conference where it's still a little more sort of analytics oriented people in the group, but that's one I learn a lot from.
Love it. In Atlanta, we were talking earlier with some of our earlier guests about the progressive level of collaboration that we're finding in supply chain. And in Atlanta, Apex Atlanta is a sponsor, and I've been an active volunteer for about 12 or 13 years. Our Apex chapter is actually collaborating on a variety of programs and other initiatives with the CSCMP Atlanta Roundtable.
Oh, that's awesome.
And these are, to our listeners, if you don't know, these are 2 organizations that have more or less competed for decades.
Absolutely.
Right? But in Atlanta, there's such a progressive level of collaboration. We're coming off on the heels of our Atlanta Supply Chain Awards, where Apex Atlanta, CSCMP, and the Metro Atlanta Roundtable work together to celebrate successes across the end-to-end supply chain. So it's really been rewarding to be a part of that.
That's great.
Okay, so how can our listeners and Sean, we took your challenge seriously here. Before we wrap up on that last question, we're sitting on a panel together on talent and supply chain tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.
Yes.
Day 3 of the Velocity Conference. From your perspective, give us a quick sneak peek on some of the key perspective you plan on sharing.
Well, I think for me, I always think of talent, of course, is a major challenge to attract and to retain. And I think, particularly sort of new hires, they need a path to see how can they grow in supply chain. So they're interested in the area, but they actually want to know more about the breadth of the company. So actually sharing, as I think one knows, sort of the dream scenario for most of these younger hires is to join these operations leadership programs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not everyone can join one of these leadership programs. So what I always try to say is, let's not create two tiers of employees. How do we actually build that infrastructure for all the sort of new hires to get them excited, to get them engaged?
Love it. No need for different classes of workers and all that stuff. Provide opportunity for all. There's something for everybody, I believe, in supply chain, supply chain. So, well, how can our listeners get in touch with you or learn more about UT's world-class supply chain program?
Oh yeah, well, the good news is we're easy to find, and I think if you could certainly just go to the Haslam College of Business website and you'll find supply chain stuff there. One can find me just at Willems, WILLEMS.UTK.edu, and certainly always eager to continue the conversation.
Fantastic. Well, I am honored to be on a panel with you tomorrow. I'm glad to finally meet you in person.
Yes, indeed.
Big fan of what you've been doing. So we've had Sean Willems, Haslam Chair in Supply Chain Analytics at the University of Tennessee, joining us here today. And we take challenges very seriously here. So, Sean, thank you. We learn something from every single conversation we have. And undoubtedly, we're going to learn a couple things from this conversation. So thanks so much for joining us. To our listeners, stay tuned as we'll be continuing to interview a variety of supply chain leaders like Sean as Supply Chain Now Radio continues its coverage of the Velocity Conference 2019 here in Orlando. You can find all of our interviews at supplychainnowradio.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, soon to be Stitcher in the next few days. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you again real soon. Thanks, everybody. All right, Scott Luton here with you live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. Today we're broadcasting live from beautiful Orlando, Florida, where we are at Velocity 2019, one of the rock and roll supply chain trade shows that is not to be missed. We'll be chatting with a variety of supply chain leaders today. This is the second segment of our second episode here at Velocity 2019. And let's welcome this segment's featured guest, Bill Harrison, President of Demand Solutions. How you doing, Bill?
Doing well, thank you.
Glad that you are here. What a great conference. Had some early, lots of good feedback already. So now, Bill, where did you travel into Orlando from?
St. Louis, Missouri. That's where we're headquartered.
Home of the Cardinals.
Yes.
Baseball season is upon us.
The Royals start Thursday.
Okay, yeah, okay. I love the Kansas City Royals too. Dayton Moore, the former Braves leader of the farm system, went on and did big things in Kansas City.
Yes, he has.
So before we talk about Demand Solutions, Bill, tell us more about your background and your overall journey.
Well, my journey started in supply chain by accident. I graduated from high school on Wednesday, went to work for True Value Hardware on Thursday.
Wow.
And it was a summer job as a summer student working in the warehouse. I filled orders, I replenished trucks, I received orders, put away orders. We were just indentured servants. But I stayed there, and the operating manager knew I was going to school locally, offered me a job in the office in the evenings. And I watched and became a rebuyer because I watched what they did and really enjoyed it. Came up through the ranks after 17 years there, running all of inventory control, running IT, running distribution and transportation. So I've spent my entire career in supply chain.
Man. And I bet that expertise and that experience as you're out talking with your clients now, it's invaluable.
It is. It's changed so much that you really have to stay on top of your game now because it's every 10 years, what you need to know is just doubling and doubling.
So you've been recently named a Pro to Know by Supply and Demand Chain Executive Magazine for the 11th year in a row. So reputation and brand, is so important in business, especially this in the supply chain space these days. What has this recognition meant to you, Bill?
It means a lot. You're recognized by your peers. You're recognized by your employees, those who nominate you. It's a validation, I think, of a job that the company has done, not just myself. So it's a validation of our team and what we've been able to accomplish the last 12 years.
Speaking of your team, Demand Solutions is one of the hosts here at the Velocity Conference. Tell us more about your company and what it does.
Well, Demand Solutions is a subsidiary of Logility. We're a wholly owned subsidiary. We do supply chain management, as does Logility, but we focus on the small and mid-sized enterprise, and we also focus more on the global enterprise. We've got offices in 34 countries. We've got our products in 11 languages, so we can truly do a global rollout, a global implementation for any country in the world.
Okay. So Food Logistics recently selected Demand Solutions as a 2018 FL 100 Plus top software and technology provider. So you got to give us some of the story behind the recognition.
Well, we do a lot in the food industries. One of my favorite customers is a company called Taylor Fresh Farms, and it's a very unique company. They're about a $2 billion company. They do lettuce and salads. They have 3 businesses. They do deli, they do commercial, and they do consumer. But it's one of those companies that they grow every day in Mexico or in Arizona. But what's unique about what we've been able to accomplish with them is right now, as we're speaking, lettuce is getting pulled out of the ground in Arizona, and it will be put on a truck, and at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning it will hit one of their 13 plants. Well, it actually hit all 13. At that point in time, we will take our forecast and their customer orders that are in our system, run it through our manufacturing scheduling software, and by 6 a.m., we start cutting, washing, drying, mixing, bagging, and within 24 hours of the food coming out of the ground, it's on its way to the consumer.
So that is remarkable. Bill, talk to just how much more complex it is in the food logistics business, because it's not like a brick, right? It's not like even a can of evaporated milk with years of shelf life. You've got to move fast, make better decisions faster. Talk about how the difference in complexity between the food, cold chain and traditional supply chain.
The real key is how fast you can get it to the consumer. And like I said, Taylor is a showcase account for me, but also at the conference we're represented by Trident Seafood, which is the same situation. The fish comes out, it's got to get processed and sent out right away. You have all the expiry date, you have all the lots. We're part of the IBM blockchain for fresh. We're starting to integrate our software into that, because what happens with this, and think about Taylor, and you use companies like that, if something goes bad, you think about the lettuce scares we've had the last couple of years, all of a sudden you've got to pull that lettuce off the shelf. Earlier last year, if you remember, we couldn't buy anywhere in this country, you couldn't get romaine.
Absolutely.
Well, the one that came out this year, because of that blockchain, Taylor found out within 2 minutes that they didn't have any product affected. They didn't have to pull anything out. They didn't have to throw anything out. So the technology of the supply chain and what we're doing gives them visibility where it is. They know which customers have it. They can notify them when they have it. And it saves just a ton of just shrinkage that in the past you would have just had to pull off the shelf and throw away.
So to our listeners, we are sitting down with Bill Harrison, President of Demand Solutions. We're here at Velocity 2019. You can hear the buzz in the background. I think we're in between keynote sessions. Big conference here, lots of good feedback already, and I really have enjoyed sitting down with supply chain leaders like Bill. So, Bill, of all the different trends and dynamics that are in the end-to-end supply chain right now, what are 2 or 3 current trends that are you're tracking more than others?
Well, it's not that we're tracking; we're actively engaged in them now. The big 3 things that have come around is, if you start looking at it, it's master data management. We have customers that have multiple ERP systems. They've got to get it in. There's a lot of M&A activity out in the marketplace. So when a company acquires another one, how fast can you get it in and get it involved? So you have master data management. You have a data warehousing that you need, and then you need analytics to go with that data warehouse, so people have more access to information quicker than they had before. And then the last and the most important is the new field of artificial intelligence. We've launched several artificial intelligence engines in the last year. We've up to 11 now. And, we can help companies just do things as simple as smooth out demand before it comes in, because, as a supply chain professional, you've got your sales history, you've got your demand, but you have no idea what your customers are doing with it all the time. You could have customers promoting it, you don't know it. Well, one of our AI engines actually goes through and smooths that data out before we even bring it in the system, and we're seeing it through a company in South Africa. We're seeing a 6% gain in forecast accuracy, not 6% of that, but 6% of total. So if it was 20%, it's down to 14%. which equates to a 33% improvement.
Wow. So, when the term big data became cliche, I don't know, 10 years ago, I'll pick a number here, the knock on that was that companies were spending all this money to collect this data, but it was not leading to decisions and action. That seems to have changed dramatically in this day and age, kind of what you're speaking to, right? You're seeing companies act on this data that they have access at their fingertips with much more effectively.
Right, but what people don't have access to, and that's where they need the data warehousing and they need more big data, is according to IBM, only 80% of the data that we use is what we call unstructured, right? So it's not data that's sitting in a database. It's not something I go pick up from our ERP system. So you have to have a way to bring that data in now. Big data is meant so much, but now with IoT and the Internet of Things, being able to use tools like Azure on Microsoft and the data lakes to be able to store, parse, and make intelligent sense of that data, now we really are getting the benefit of the big data.
So, changing gears a little bit here as we sit in the middle of Velocity Conference 2019, what is your favorite aspect about these types of conferences?
You really get a lot of one-on-one time with your customers. I mean, that's the thing. We're always out, I'm on the phone with them. I go visit them. And when you're out there, you're with a group of people. But when you get to a conference like this, you literally get to spend some one-on-one quality time with them, hear their concerns, hear what's working, hear what's not working, and then you work as a partnership to get it together again.
I've heard about the Solutions Cafe. It's one of the breakout rooms here where folks are coming into the room. Some clients, some potential clients, or just people coming in and whiteboard problems and challenges and talking shop. That's a pretty neat practical approach here, something that seems like the folks that attend this conference really enjoy.
Well, and you don't just do that here. You actually do it in your office now. Yeah. I mean, when we're out developing things and we're getting ideas, we go into a scrum room, which is just floor-to-ceiling whiteboards, and you just start, just dreaming. and it really comes down to that, and you get everybody's idea. And the more that you can put into this and get your feedback from your customers, then the better your software becomes, and the more that your customers and your partners will get out of it.
So what other trade shows are on your radar or those that you're attending this year?
We got the Gartner Supply Chain Conference in May. I'm speaking there for a session. We've got Gartner's added a second supply chain conference in November this year in Colorado, so we're part of that. Obviously, we've got APIX. We do several of the IBF conferences. We especially do the supply chain in June. So we're constantly out at conferences and shows.
I'm glad you mentioned APIX. I've been a long time APIX volunteer. And, of course, APIX is now part of the ASCM community, which we're excited about. But Fred Tolbert is a member of the Demand Solutions team. And I don't know if you know it, but he's an APIX Hall of Famer.
Oh, yes.
He is a legend, especially in the Southeast. I've had the good fortune of collaborating with Fred in Atlanta for a number of years. One-of-a-kind guy. Any story you can share about Fred Tolbert?
I'll give you two real quick ones. Fred has been with us so long, either as a customer or as a partner, that he has been to every one of these customer conferences. And by the way, Demand Solutions has been around since 1985. Okay. So if that tells you anything about Fred. The other thing is the first time I'm out in Taylor Farms, I'm have a meeting with the CFO. And, get to talking, and I look on his desk, and he's got a flag of Georgia. I said, "Oh, you like Georgia?" He said, "I'm from Georgia." Where are you from? And he named the little town. And I said, "Oh, I've got one of my reps is from out there." He goes, "Oh, what's his name?" He said, "Fred Tolbert." And he goes, "Oh, my mom and Fred's mom are best friends." I mean, so here I am in Salinas, California. Fred's all the way across the country, and I meet somebody who's best friends with his mother.
Fred Tolbert, coast to coast.
Coast to coast.
Coast to coast. Love it. So, Bill, how can our listeners get in touch with you or learn more about Demand Solutions?
Best way is go to our website, www.demandsolutions.com. There's an 800 number on there. Our phone number is 314-991-7100. You can feel free to call that. You'll go through the directory. You can get to our line for information, for support, help, whatever you need.
Fantastic. Well, Bill Harrison, president of Demand Solutions, thanks so much for joining us here today. It's a pleasure to be here at Velocity Conference, which you help host. Thanks so much, Bill. So to our listeners, stay tuned as we'll be continuing to interview a variety of supply chain leaders like Bill as Supply Chain Now Radio continues its coverage of the Velocity Conference 2019 here in Orlando. You can find all of our interviews at supplychainnowradio.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, soon to be Stitcher. all in the next few days. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon. All right, Scott Luton here with you live on Supply Chain Now Radio. Welcome back to the show. Today, as we continue our live broadcast from beautiful Orlando, Florida, where we're at Velocity 2019, one of the rock and roll supply chain trade shows that is not to be missed. We're continuing our conversations with a variety of supply chain leaders here today. Today, this segment is our third and final segment of our second episode already here at Velocity. So let's welcome this segment's featured guest, PJ Yakovlevich, Principal Industry Analyst with Technology Evaluation Centers. PJ, good afternoon. Glad you're here.
Good afternoon to you, too. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you. So now, PJ, where did you travel into Orlando from?
From Boston.
Okay.
That's where I live and work out of my home office, Technology Evaluation Centers, or TC's headquarters in Montreal.
Fantastic. And how different was the weather in the Boston area?
Significantly different. This spring, or the beginning of spring, seems to be a bit on a chilly side.
Yes.
Although maybe tomorrow when I come back, we should be in the 60s.
That's right. Well, PJ, where we live in Georgia, they say if you don't like the weather, just wait 2 hours, and it'll change. So
yeah, they say that in New England, wait for 5 minutes. I'm not sure about that, but yeah.
So before we talk about your company, TEC, tell us more about your background and your overall journey.
Well, I would say my overall journey has been an interesting one, although also a logical one. So I do have a degree in mechanical engineering and also some industrial engineering. So I did work for many manufacturing companies in the late 80s. Now I'm revealing my age, but never mind. And throughout the 90s in former Yugoslavia and in South Africa. And sometime in the mid-90s, I became then an ERP user. And at that time, at least in South Africa, there were only like two major ERP products. It was SAP, which is even today, and the other one, which was BAN. And so I worked for a couple of companies that were using those products, and I became sort of proficient as a user in manufacturing planning and supply chain, inventory management, and all that. And at that time, there was a big shortage of skilled people who could then implement those. Given that those companies were growing like bonkers at that time, doubling in size and all that, then I started working for Deloitte and Touche as a BAN consultant. There was at that time even a greater demand in the U.S. So then I was brought by Capgemini to the U.S. under an H-1B visa and all that. I'm talking about 98, 99. And it was all going fine until BAN as a company started having some troubles talking about like cooking books or whatever else. Even pre-Enron area, it was like a harbinger of what Enron was going to do. So the damage was done. The company stopped selling that, and Capgemini sort of had to disband the entire practice. But luckily, my current employer, that I will now celebrate my 20th anniversary in June.
Congratulations. Wow.
TEC, or Technology Evaluation Center, was starting up at that time. And at that time, they needed people who were various kinds of analysts, ERP, CRM, supply chain, you name it. So it all worked out at the end of the day nicely, and I've been with them now
almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years, and instead of really knowing one product, very deeply, and implementing and getting into the details of each customer and their problems and all that, the focus has since been, for me, more like a high level, following the marketing trends, knowing what each vendor is doing, how they're trying to differentiate in the market space. And that seems to be interesting. And I haven't been bored at my work for a while, given that you definitely need to follow some trends. And just when you think you mastered something, here comes another emerging technology.
Let's talk more about TEC, the Technology Evaluation Centers. So as I understand it, the TEC's mission is to serve as an impartial software analysis firm. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sort of like a consumer report in the enterprise software.
The seal of approval for different platforms.
On purpose, the company never went into implementing any software. So we don't have any conflict of interest that we would recommend this vendor, because we know that a bunch of consultants are sitting idle. So let's try to get them busy. So,
tell us more about the services y'all provide. How does it work?
Well, it's really interesting because the company has its own decision-making software, sourcing software, and I'm trying not to bore the people with some stats or
Sure.
complex math and all that.
We'll
but
keep it simple here at
like
Supply Chain Now Radio.
Multi attribute utility theory. That's how much I'll go. But basically, you can ask ERP vendors or CRM vendors a big number of questions and ask them, can you support this functionality? And then you can give them the option. That means yes, out of the box, with some modifications, with some customizations. It's only the future development, and that's all rated in the background. And then the prospective customer can then go and rate each of these, either individual or in some groups of criteria, and can say, it's must have, or it's nice to have, or not that needed,
right?
Or we don't care about that at all. So that's also rated. That's also rated in the background. So now they can, once they rate that in the background, they can quickly go and say, okay, what's the best fit for our business? And we already have, let's say, maybe 80 or 100 different ERP solutions with our answers, which we certified that they are correct. And then there will be like some visual or graphic, best fit analysis, where then the prospective user can say, okay, maybe these three vendors seem to be the best fit. How about we maybe do like some what if scenario? Let's say we thought that HR functionality is very important. Maybe it's not, or vice versa. And then you can do a couple of these iterative runs. And then once you are really comfortable that which is that like 2 or 3 finalist vendors, then you will take them offline and then go into deeper discussion, in which case you can do this on your own, or TEC consultants are more than happy to help when it comes to negotiations with vendors, or how to do software demos, what to pay attention to, maybe whatever else, contractual negotiations and all that.
Serving the resource, holistic resource, it sounds.
Yes.
So TEC recently announced the launch of the 2019 ERP Expert Survey, and as I was reading up on it, looks like y'all have combined your 25 years of experience, coupled with 39 handpicked analysts, consultants, vendors, to put out a pretty comprehensive resource. Tell us more about that.
Well, that was really an interesting idea, and sort of like a mini crowdsourcing and all that, because lots of these people who have contributed, and we are very appreciative of that. In theory or even in practice, they could be our competitors,
right? Because
we are all competing for a mind share and our time, in front of the vendors or prospective customers and all that. But then we also thought, let's see what we think about what the trends are in the market. What are the biggest pain points when it comes to ERP by customers and all that. And there is also variety. Some of these are analysts. Some of them are vendor staffers. Some of them worked both for the vendor and are now analysts. And some
lots of diversity.
Yes, lots of diversity. And let's see what we will come up with. And I would really encourage everyone to go and read, because it is really, in depth with some typical, graphs and charts and all that. But also, we even left some open-ended answers where people could give like some thoughts that is not easy to quantify and all that, but are still worthwhile reading. So
not pigeonholed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
there were lots of multiple choice, and that's how you can then come up with some charts and all that. But also we left like some more, soft, open-ended answers.
Fantastic.
And thoughts.
So shifting gears a little bit here, what are 2 to 3 current supply chain trends that you're tracking more than others right now, PJ?
Well, I'm more than happy to say that I'm pleased that all of those trends that I've been following were talked about at this conference too. So one is definitely, the overall theme is that it is not your father's supply chain anymore.
Right.
And there is a real speed and agility, like the two keywords when it comes to supply chain. And in fact, I even have like one personal example of a speed of supply chain.
Yes.
I wanted to entertain some friends the other day, and I wanted to make a pasta dish with squid ink pasta.
Yes.
Which is very popular in Europe, in Italy, not as commonly seen in the US.
Right.
So I thought, fine, maybe I'll find that at some fancy places like Whole
Right.
Foods or whatever else. No luck, no dice. And the weekend was approaching. And rather than disappointing my family and saying, well, we'll make it just with regular pasta or whatever else, or whatever, let's just cancel everything, I tried my luck, and Amazon delivered in 23 hours.
It's unbelievable.
That my wife, who is not in a supply chain space, her reaction was, how is that even possible? So in any case,
Supply chain.
supply chain, quick
Yeah.
supply chain, because everyone is talking about that Amazon effect, and this really happened in my personal life, and
I think it's interesting, PJ, and I'm curious if you agree with this observation. I can't remember who we were talking to last week on one of our podcasts, but it came out that it really seems that the consumers are really connecting the ability to get things fast, get what they want, and then if it's the wrong size, wrong color, what have you, they put it on their doorstep. It's easier to return things. It seems like more and more consumers are really connecting that with supply chain in terms of that's the biggest enabler of modern shopping experiences.
absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. But then, it's not easy for these manufacturers and retailers.
Tell me about it. So,
So
do you think that since let's assume that's true, the consumers, it's proven that they are beginning to appreciate end-to-end supply chain more and more. Do you think we're gonna see a benefit with more talent opting to come into the industry and take some of these jobs that we don't have enough people for?
one would expect and hope for that, and at least because everyone is worried that now these AI and robots, they are going to kill the jobs. But it appears that many new kind of jobs are going to open, and also, I'm not a big fan of AI. I think it's overused, and it's used where it should be and it shouldn't be. I more prefer augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, and that's where I'm mostly seeing the use, really pragmatic use of these tools, where it is really helping humans focus on making smart and strategic decisions instead of their work just being some dreadful legwork and plowing through Excel spreadsheets or whatever else, and even then making wrong decisions and just being frustrating and feeling useless. So
I saw the number. I think Agility has it somewhere on their website where a study came out that still some remarkable number, 87% of supply chains still thrive on the use of Excel spreadsheets, which is, and it may not have been 87, but it was an overwhelming bigger number than maybe I had anticipated. The good old spreadsheet is still alive and well, isn't it, PJ?
And I even personally recently attended some refresher courses for how to use Excel.
Really? Well, it's such an incredible tool that has so much flexibility, so much built-in different ways you can use it. So maybe it's never going to die. Maybe it's invincible.
Yeah.
Microsoft Excel.
I definitely wanted to, freshen up a little bit on pivot tables and all that,
Sure.
because that can be useful and all that stuff. But yeah, that's amazing. Probably the best product
Yeah, definitely.
for Microsoft's revenues ever.
Don't give me a quiz on pivot tables, because
Yeah.
I've forgotten how to use those in Excel. But so let's switch gears again here a little bit, because you've been, I think this is your second Velocity conference, I believe, and I know you go to a bunch of different trade shows. But for the Velocity 2019 conference, what's been your favorite component, or what's been maybe some of your key takeaways thus far?
Well, I can definitely tell you, because I can even now compare. So it was maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. I cannot remember, and it was only Logility's conference at that time. And it was in New Orleans, and maybe it was tops maybe 200 people, including even the Logility employees and guests and media and whoever. And I think that at that time, Logility had Demand Solutions as a sister company, and I think it was soon after they acquired Optiant for inventory optimization. NGC was already part of American Software, which is the Logility's parent. But it was interesting when you would talk to them, because I would follow both vendors, and I would ask them, "Are you doing anything with Logility or with Demand Solution?" Like, no, they are just our sister company, and we even have our own marketing, our own budgets, this, that, which was a little bit surprising to me, given that I could see some synergy. I could see like synergy that NGC's PLM for like some fashion retailers and manufacturers, why wouldn't they benefit from maybe doing demand planning from? So it is really refreshing to see that now all four brands, all four companies are here together, that they are now trying to develop on the same platform, trying not to reinvent the wheel. If you develop some AI model or something for demand sensing here, let's say Demand Solution does that, or Halo, then Logility could use, and that is now what is happening there. And also I've heard that there is now integration, and not only when it comes to software integration, but even organizational integration, that now people are selling. If the customer says, "Oh, I need sourcing," then they will offer them that NGC offers, even though maybe the Logility salesperson was there, and vice versa.
Much more comprehensive organization, capable organization that can...
And more coherent. I would say coherent. And also, one reason for that is exactly these fast supply chains.
That's right.
Because now you are developing shoes or developing whatever in NGC's PLM software. Why wouldn't you want to immediately know, okay, do I have enough textile or material from China? From who am I going to source that? Especially now that seasons, that these apparel products last maybe a few weeks only. That's their season, and if you don't sell it, then you do that via markup selling, and you just keep losing money.
Missed opportunity.
So that is what I like, that concept to customer.
Yes.
Or fast fashion, which Zara or whoever else in Europe has mastered long ago. These retailers.
So, PJ, how can our listeners, and we can happy to post your email in our show notes, but how can they get in touch with you or learn more about your organization, TEC?
Well, it's easy. There is our website,
technologyevaluation.com, right?
It's a little bit longer, one word, but there is also our Twitter account, Tech Tweets, TEC Tweets, one word.
Okay, TEC Tweets, one word. Okay,
and of course my personal email and LinkedIn. And
we'll publish that.
If you can publish that rather than me spelling
here
forever.
You got it. Well, I really enjoyed speaking with you a little bit. PJ Yakovlevich, Principal Industry Analyst with Technology Evaluation Centers. We need to have you back on the show. We've had quite an interview scheduled this afternoon at Velocity, but really enjoyed you sharing your perspective and your story and what you're doing out in the industry to help folks navigate the technology waters.
Well, thank you very much for
You
having
bet.
me. This was really enjoyable.
Definitely, and we're going to talk more. To our listeners, this is again this wraps up our second episode here today, and we're going to conclude this session on a few final items. First off, APICS classes at Georgia Tech coming up. CSCP and CLTD boot camps kick off again on June 24th. That's just around the corner. It'll be here before we know it. So if you're looking for your supply chain certification, come on out and take a class with us to help get your APICS certification. You can learn more at apixatlanta.org. The e-commerce operations summit is coming up April 9th through the 11th in Columbus, Ohio. We're a proud media partner. You can learn more about that leading e-commerce industry event at operationssummit.com. In May, the Association for Manufacturing Excellence will be holding its Atlanta 2019 Lean Summit. Speakers, plant tours, networking, all focused on the world of manufacturing, which I know, PJ, you've spent a good bit of time in manufacturing,
Yes,
right?
and I'm also a member of Boston APICS chapter.
Oh, fantastic.
So time permitting, given that I go to many conferences and I need to produce lots of blog posts and research articles and all that, but every now and then I go to some PDM meetings.
Fantastic.
And you can hear some really interesting presentations there.
So we're APICS colleagues. I love it. So the May AME event, which is the Atlanta 2019 Lean Summit, again, speakers, plant tours, networking, focus on manufacturing. We're serving as a media partner. You can learn more about that event at ame.org. We're a proud partner of EFT's 3PL and Supply Chain Summit coming to Atlanta, June 10th through the 12th. Great lineup of speakers from UPS, Land O'Lakes, Uber Freight, Cisco, DHL Supply Chain, many more. You can check out EFT.com for more information. Or if you can't find what you're looking for, send us a note to scott@supplychainnowradio.com. We'll get you more information. We're going to be broadcasting live from that event as well. So be sure to tune in. Okay, so big thanks to our guests today on this second episode here at Velocity 2019. Sean Willems with the University of Tennessee, Bill Harrison with Demand Solutions, PJ Yakovlevich with Technology Evaluation Centers. Again, PJ, thanks for coming and sharing your expertise.
And again, thank you
for
having me.
You bet. So be sure to check out our other upcoming events, replays of our interviews, other resources at supplychainnowradio.com. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, you name it. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. On behalf of Supply Chain Now Radio, our whole team, this is Scott Luton wishing you a wonderful week, and we hope to see you next time on Supply Chain Now Radio. Thanks, everybody.